This is Sarah with Posh Pooch Designs, and today's video I'm going to show you how to make this really simple fringe dog collar. And it's really simple to make. It's all done in half double crochets. Now you'll notice there is a button, and I know that I've told you in the past that it's not a good idea to put buttons on dog collars and dog clothes. So this is a choice that you're going to have to make. If your dog is a chewer, then sew the ends together, and I'll show you how to do that. But if not, a nice big fancy button. And we're working with worsted weight number 4 today. It takes a very small amount. And I'm going to be using this kind of a beigey color and this variegated color. And these are both Red Heart Super Saver. And I really love to use Red Heart Super Saver with a lot of my dog items because it's washable, it's durable, and it's just a really great mix for working with dog items. So I'm going to be using those colors. We're going to be using an H hook today, and those of you who've watched my videos know this is my favorite purple H hook. You're going to need a needle with a nice big eye, and we're going to need one big old button. And this is about 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches, depending on the shape. And you can see on this one that Rosie was wearing in the video, it's a great big flower. And I like to use the buttons that only have the 2 holes, just because I like the way it lays better with this particular pattern. But you can use any button or even 2 buttons if you want to. And we will be making a working buttonhole. Let me show you on this one, on the end, on one end, like this. And this is basically what the collar is going to look like. It's all stitched in half double crochets, and then I'll show you how to cut and add your fringe. Okay, so the pattern calls for you to chain 40 chains. And the way you adjust this pattern for any size dog is 3 chains equal 1 inch. So I've only chained 30 plus 1 would be 31 because you want to have 1 because we're going to be going in the second chain from the hook. So for a 10-inch dog neck, I chained 30 because 3 times 10 is 30 plus 1. So you're going to need 31 for a 10-inch dog neck. Now, anytime you adjust 3 times the inches that you get, because on your measure, let me show you again, 1 inch equals 3 chains. Now, make sure, for instance, again on this one, the dog's neck is 10 inches. So I did 3 chains times 10, which is 30, plus 1. So a total of 31 chains. And that's because we're going to begin stitching in the second chain from the hook. And we're going to put a half double crochet in each stitch. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to put your yarn over. We're going in the second chain. So there's 1, 2. Put your hook through and pull through a loop. Now you have 3 loops on your chain. Yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And that's a half double crochet. And also, those of you who have watched my videos, you know this is one of my favorite stitches because sometimes a single crochet is too short and sometimes a half double crochet or a double crochet is too tall. And so a half double crochet makes a nice compact stitch. And because you have that extra loop in there, it's a nice filled in stitch. You're not going to get a lot of holes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 1/2 double crochet in each chain across. So now we've put 1/2 double crochet in each stitch across. We're going to chain 1 and turn. Our chain 1 is only a turning chain. We're going to begin stitching in the first half double crochet, and we're going to put 1/2 double crochet in each half double crochet across. And we'll do this all the way across, and then on the next row we're going to change colors. So once we get to this end, I will show you how to add another color. You don't have to. On this one I kept the colors all one type of variegated yarn without changing colors. And on this one I added a stripe. And I'm going to show you how to add that stripe just in case you want to. Stitched 2 rows of half double crochets. And we want to change colors so that we can add this stripe like this one in here. You don't have to, but it's a fun little change in the pattern. So what you're going to do is cut off your yarn, because we're going to be attaching on the other end, and we're going to join in our solid color. And the way you do that, put your loop over your hook, leave yourself a little bit of a tail for weaving in, and go through that stitch and then chain 1. When changing colors at the end of a row, in my opinion, it is best to do your chain 1, or whatever pattern that you're doing, if it's a chain 2 or 3 or whatever, to do that after the color change. That way it doesn't tail up with the previous color up into the row. And again, we're going to be working in the first half double crochet, and we're just going to stitch 1 row of half double crochets in the solid color. Now, it's your dog collar, and you can do however many amounts of stripes that you want. And another thing to remember is if you're doing for a bigger dog and you want your collar to be thicker, oh my goodness, make it thicker, add more stripes. I just like the length of this one, the width of it, because it's a nice winter scarf. You know, winter collar, like a scarf. And it can help keep your dog's neck warm in those early morning walks and those late night walks when it's cool. Or even in the afternoon when it starts cooling off here in Colorado. I think this would be a perfect little scarf or cowl or collar, whatever you want to call it, to do in sports team colors. If you're a Broncos fan, oh my goodness, do it in orange and blue. Or maybe an OU fan, crimson and cream. Or whatever color your sports teams are, school colors. You could do this in those, and that would be so cool. There is a yarn that is a sports team yarn where the colors go from 2 colors gradually, and that would work too. So any kind of worsted weight yarn, whether it's a solid or a variegated, will work for this little pattern. And this is just a fun little pattern. And just a little FYI, if you like to do fundraisers or craft fairs, these have been really good sellers when they're done in sports team colors. For instance, like for a school that's raising money for their sports team equipment or their band equipment or things like that, to make these in school colors, people really eat them up. And they're quick to make and don't take a lot of yarn. So we're at the end of this row. We did 1 stripe in the color. And now we're going to change back to our previous color. And you do the exact same thing. You loop the yarn over, leave yourself a little bit for weaving in. Pull a loop through. Where did it go? There we go. Which tail to grab? All right. We chain 1. Make sure we cut off that other yarn so we don't get confused like I just did. All right, and now we're going to stitch 2 rows of half double crochet back in our variegated color. So 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet across, and then we'll come back and do the same thing. All right, so we've stitched 5 rows of half double crochet. We did 2 in our variegated, then we did a stripe in the solid, then we did 2 in our variegated. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be working on the end of our row. Now I did tidy up the ends and went ahead and dealt with my ends except for this one, and I left it there because I'm going to show you how I weave in my ends. But we're going to do this end first, because this is the end we're going to add our buttonhole. Now we have 5 rows, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a 1/2 double crochet in the end of each row. So we're going to go in the stitch and make 1. Then we go to the next row in the end of that row and make a 1/2 double crochet. Then now we're on our solid row. Just go right through that last stitch and stitch a 1/2 double crochet. Make sure you go through the stitch, not the hole, or you end up with a little bit of a hole. Get some more yarn out here. And now we're in our last 1/2 double crochet. And that just gives us a base to stitch on when we go to add our buttonhole. All right, so now we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn. Now we're going to put a 1/2 double crochet in the first 1/2 double crochet. Then we'll put a 1/2 double crochet in the second one. And then we're going to chain 1, 2, and then we're going to skip that stitch, and then we're going to put a 1/2 double crochet in the next stitch and a 1/2 double crochet in that last stitch. And what this did, there we go, is it gave us a little edge, and then it also gave us a hole to put our button through. And now we're going to cut that off, and we'll weave in both those ends. And I'm going to show you my favorite way to weave in ends is with a needle. Thread your needle, and where you're working, go right back in that stitch and make a couple of stitches going that direction, and then go up like to the next stitch and go right back through where you were working through that last stitch. Snug it up a little bit and snip it off. And I'll show you with this one also. I have tied knots, I have tied loop stitches, I've tried all kinds of things, and to me a needle is the best way to keep my ends from coming out. And especially with a playful dog or even a cat, because this would be perfect on a cat too, you don't want it to come apart when they're wearing it. So let's go through some of these stitches, and we'll go straight up, just like that, and then we'll turn, go in that stitch, and go straight back. And I think because it's a little bit of a turn, it just helps it stay put, hides it real well. All right, so here is our little scarf. Now I prefer to put the fringe not on the side that has the chain. I like to do it on the other side, because for some reason it just seems to have a little bit of an extra flare out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is we need to measure and cut some fringe. And the way we do that, pull our tape measure out. And I chose to use one of the variegated and one of the solid for each fringe. So what you'll do is you're going to measure it out like this, and if it's not perfect, you can always trim it up. And you're going to need to cut one of these for each stitch, or if you want to do every other stitch, it's totally up to you. But I like it to be nice and full. So let me cut a couple more here, and then I'll show you how to attach them. All right, we'll just cut those few, and I'm going to show you how to attach your fringe to your collar. Now, this is the end where the button is, and this is the end where we're going to add the buttonhole. And so I'm not going to put any in the first 2 or 3, because that's where it's going to overlap just a little here. And I like to kind of have an open space. Let me show you here. I left it, you know, 3 or 4 stitches there. So I kind of like to have that. Now you can go all the way over if you want to, but I kind of like to have that little bit of open space. Once you button it, it does overlap, and then it gives you just a little bit of space here. So it's up to you where you want to place your first one. Okay, so to put on our fringe, let me move this over a little bit. We put our hook through the first, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, so I'm going to go in the fourth one. Go through those 2 bottom loops. Take your fringe and fold it in half. Lay it across your hook. Now, the yarn you're using for your fringe, you can use 1 or 2. Like I said, I'm using 2. Pull it through, and so you can see you've got that loop on there. Wrap your yarn over your hook, and then pull it through that loop, and then snug it down, just like that. And I'll show you how to do it again. Right in the next stitch, put your hook through, fold your yarn in half for your fringe, pull that loop through that stitch that you're working, wrap the yarn over your hook, and then go right through that loop and snug it down. Now, it's totally up to you whether you want this to be the front or this, but I like the look of this on the front. And I'll show you again on this one. This is what the back side looks like, and this is what the front side looks like. So it's up to you which direction. There is no right or wrong on this fringe, however way you want to do it. And then what you'll do is you'll go all the way across, putting one set of fringe in each stitch. Okay, so then when you're all done, you can go across with your scissors and just trim that up all the way across so that it's even. Now, the last thing we need to do is add the button, and that's where you decide which side you want to be your front. Oh, looky there, I missed part of it. Which side you want to be your front and which side you want to be your back. It doesn't matter. So we're going to do it this way. This is going to be our front, and our button is going to sit here. So we're going to take our button, cut off a nice size piece of yarn, and thread that. And I want my button to sit this way because I like that. It's up to you. Just stitch that button on using the same yarn so it matches. Unless you want it to contrast, you certainly can do that. And I usually do 3 or 4 stitches. And then on the back, I do give it a nice good, what I call the triple knot, because I do 3 little knots just like that. Give it a nice tight pull, snip it, and then your button will button right through there. And that's how you make these fun fringe dog collars. And it's totally up to you the colors that you want to make. It's totally up to you the size. It'll work for any size dog. And you can also use cotton yarn if you want to, but I really prefer the worsted weight when I'm working with my dogs for the type of yarns that I like. So there you have it. Go make a bunch, Rosie's barking, and have some fun.